Hello, welcome to Band T-Shirts with Leah. My name is Leah and this is my weekly podcast where I talk about a t-shirt from my band t-shirt collection. I'm very excited this week because we're up to episode 14, which means we have broken past the unlucky 13, which is very good news. Anyway, I live in Adelaide, Australia, and I record on Ghana land. Anyway, the other thing I'm excited about this week is that we are back to black t-shirts. That's right, we're back in black. I know that I said at the start, like I've got heaps of black t-shirts, and then I have done a series of not black t-shirts, and it was like, do you really have black t-shirts? I really do. This one is, you might have got a little sneak peek off there, the Stone Temple Pilots. So it is a black t-shirt and it has red and gold print on it. So that is the front of it. Oh God, I'm just, oh, man. You know what? I really don't know another way to do this except for hold it up awkwardly in front of my face and then try to look around it. I mean, obviously I can take a photo of it, and I do that too, but there's really no other way because, I kept saying I'll get better at it. I'm not. This is as good as it gets. Anyway, so it is a hand doing like a peace sign, and the hand is red, like I was going to say like a maroon red, but it's not really, but it's not like a blood red, with a gold print around it. So it's kind of got like a scalloped edge and then a print detail, like a swirling print detail on the inside of the hand. And then underneath it, it says in another like red strip with a gold outline, Stone Temple Pilots in full caps, also in gold writing. So that's the front. And anyway, here, I'll put the proper photo of it here. Like, just really nicely. Like, oh, that's what it looks like all together. That's what it looks like all together. And the back has not a individual show date, but it does have a year. So this is from 2011. And it has got the cities that they went to on this tour. This was another Australia-New Zealand tour where they went to Perth, Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, Newcastle, and then Auckland. And that was the New Zealand part of the tour. Yes, and you might be thinking, Newcastle? Didn't come to Adelaide, but went to Newcastle. You would be right. That is exactly what they did. They did not come to Adelaide. They went to Newcastle. Anyway, on the back of it, it does say again, the same like strip of red with gold outline, Stone Temple Pilots, 2011 tour, and then it has like a little flower pattern at the bottom. And the cities are all written in gold. Now, if you've watched any of my podcasts before, you can probably pick which city I went to. I'll give you a hint. It starts with M and ends in Melbourne. That's right, Melbourne. Anyway, I'm going to put this here and then I'll come back in a second. Now look, now you can see the whole thing in all its glory. Well, you know what? Oh my God, can you... that was my peace symbol, except I would cross my fingers. I don't know what's wrong with me. I mean, apart from the normal, but I don't know what's specifically wrong with me today. Anyway, so like I said, I went to see Stone Temple Pilots in Melbourne in 2011, and I saw them at Festival Hall, which I understand when I booked the tickets at the time that it was a very iconic venue for live music in Melbourne, but I'd never been there before, and I'd never been there again. That was the one and only time that I went there. So I had waited a very long time to see them play, and I think 2011, so it's obviously 11, probably at least I reckon 16 or 17 years before I got to see them. So it was obviously, that's a pretty long time to wait. And this was another occasion too where I didn't know anybody else that was or could go. But at the time, I just bought 2 tickets and was like, well, whatever, however it works out, works out. Anyway, I didn't have anyone to go to the concert with. I did do the roadie with my mum and my niece Eva. We went over. Eva was obviously much younger at the time. And when we were there, we also went to... I think it was a Disney Princesses exhibition at which one was that? The Centre for Acme, I think. The Centre for Moving Images in Fed Square. That's what else we did while we were there. Anyway, so I did go to this by myself, but I didn't really care because I just wanted to go. Because like I said, it had been a very long wait, and I didn't know whether they would ever come here. I didn't know whether, anybody would get to see them here. Like Scott Weiland, the singer, he had a well-known struggle with addiction, and so I think, in that stage you don't know whether they're going to make it, not just here and touring, but you don't know whether he's going to make it, right? Because, it's a precarious thing to be in, to be stuck in. So, just was never really sure that they would make it here. And then I bought the tickets like with my fingers crossed, and just hoped for the best, really. Just hoped that there would be no problems, the tour wouldn't be cancelled, it would go as expected, and everything would be fine. I have found a couple of photos from this show. I'm still looking for the old, I think my old SD cards to find out like exactly like what's in there, how much is in there. I'm pretty sure that there is more in there, and if I find it, I will pepper those other ones in. But at the moment I only have 2 photos, and one of them shows what was listed as a restricted view. So you can see there, like there's like a wire across the front, but it's a wire. I can very easily see around it. It's no more of a restricted view than when like a 6'4" man stands in front of you and you go like this. Okay, it is what it is, right? No. And so I was in the seated area for this because I couldn't get tickets to GA at the time. It's not a huge venue, so again, I got what I could get, hoped for the best, and that was what I got, restricted view. But you can see from there, right, I'm not really that far from the stage. I am on the side, so if the stage was like this, the venue was like this, and they were playing here, well, I'm like here, right, which is not terrible, because I'm still pretty close to them. I'm just not, obviously, an ideal one would be front on, but I'm not front on, I'm side on. But I'm not this type of side on, when you're like, when you're further down the venue, so you're like, no, I'm almost directly in front of me, but just the side view of them, but I'm still facing forward. Anyway, I've probably over-explained that, considering you can see it a little bit in the picture. But that was a restricted view, but I took it because I thought, I don't care, I just want to go. And really, as long as I can hear, that's the most important thing. But even when I was sitting there, I was so nervous because I was didn't really believe that it was going to happen until they came out on stage. So I still did think, even then, at any point, it could be like, oh no, this is not going to happen. Anyway, so they come out, right? Whole band, obviously. Scott comes out with like a megaphone, and they open with Cracker Man, and the very first line, he hits a couple of bum notes, like not terrible, just a little bit, and I thought in that instant, oh, you've made a terrible mistake. This is going to cover and cloud, all of your feeling before this is going to be overwritten by this single experience. But I should not have worried so early, because he absolutely recovered, and then it was an amazing set, right? So starting with Cracker Man with the megaphone was just really good, because using that gives him kind of 2 different voices, or 2 different voice options, I guess, right? His straight one, and then the one that's kind of distorted through there. Also, like he had such a great not quite full gravelly, but a more gravelly type of voice. So that contrast was really good. I actually did find a copy of them performing a couple of years later, maybe a year or 2 later, on YouTube. I'll link that down below so that you can also watch it if you're interested, because then you'll understand that distinction that I'm talking about between the two. But yeah, it was a few seconds of worry, but then obviously again, like, it was fine, because that's the thing about live music, right? Sometimes there are errors, sometimes there are changes in pitch, sometimes there's variation, sometimes things are a little bit longer, a little bit shorter than you thought they'd be, or the way that you've heard them, on the album 4,000 times before. It's just a little bit different, but that's the great thing about it, is that you're getting just a really unique moment, and it's not it's not going to be repeated, because if there is a little error, so what? If the note is a little bit higher than it normally is, excellent. I haven't heard it like that before. So no, it was mildly alarming, and then it was amazing. It was a great set list for me. Like, obviously, I mean, I'm a fan, so I was going to be happy listening to whatever I got. But they played a good collection of their hits and singles, but also some other songs that you might not have thought you'd get to hear. So for me, that was Still Remains, because that's one of my favourite songs, and I didn't expect to hear that. Oh, no, I didn't. Not that I didn't expect, but you just never know, right? But they did also play, so like I said, started with Cracker Man, played Vaseline, Big Empty, Plush, Interstate Love Song, Sex Type Thing, and then among others. I'll put the full list down below. And then finished with Tripping on a Hole in a Paper Heart for their encore. So it was a pretty decent set, right? So what have they got here? 17 songs, which is pretty good, right? And it was obviously a wide variety of different songs, because it came off of different albums, and it was just a great show. And I was emotional when it started, because I wasn't sure that it would happen, and I just felt really grateful that I was there in the moment and it was happening. This show was in 2011, and then Scott died in 2015, and he was only 48, which is so young, right? It's very young. And I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about like how we've talked about Soundgarden. Well, we've talked about a Soundgarden show. We've talked about not seeing Nirvana. We've talked about not seeing Audioslave or Linkin Park, and we've talked about, I actually very briefly mentioned saying Alice in Chains, but I didn't talk about that show. I don't have an Alice in Chains t-shirt, so we might just have a t-shirt list pod episode then, so we can talk about that, because it was another emotional show actually, and I think one worth sharing. Anyway, I also this week had an ad come up in my my Insta, like the recommended for you was an advert for Stone Temple Pilots. Now, I think part of the reason I got that is because I had checked into the Harley Street Music Hall, you know, when I've seen two bands in the last 12 months, I guess. And so I guess that's why it came up. And I was surprised, to be honest, because I didn't know they were still touring. Because for me, even when Scott was alive but had what was not in the band, I wasn't really following them then, because for me, like, so much of what I loved about Stone Temple Pilots was his voice, and when it wasn't there anymore, it was weird. And even though he was replaced with someone else that I like to listen to, like I like Chester, obviously I've talked about Linkin Park before, I think he was great, but I just didn't feel like, for me, that was the right type of fit for how I felt, right? I'm not saying nobody can do what they want, obviously everyone can do what they want, but it just seemed it wasn't the right fit for me. So that tour it will be in Australia in March next year, and I don't know who the new singer is. I briefly looked him up, and then I was like, that still doesn't ring any bells for me. But to be fair, obviously I don't know everything about everything, so he might have been in other bands that other people know. I just didn't know who it was. Now, coincidentally, this weekend was also the first Linkin Park show with their new singer. So their new singer that, there had been rumours, and then I think some leaks, and then I think they did confirm it before the actual show started, was Emily Armstrong. So they had their first show, and I think they did play a new song, but they also played old songs. And the reception to this on the internet was probably what you expect from the internet, right? Good, bad, and very bad. So there were people who were very supportive of the direction, thought it was a good move to go to a different vocal style rather than trying to find someone who could pretend to be Chester. And also just happy to see the other members of the band that wanted to continue on as the band to do so. I think the drummer has actually pulled out. I think he's left in the last maybe only week or so as well. It might have been more than that. I only read about it in the last week. So the people, good. That's the good. Then there's the bad, and I think I might kind of sit in this group, even though I haven't. I don't think I'm maliciously in this group. For me, my connection with Linkin Park finished with Chester. So I think that the music that they produced when he was in the band resonates with me very strongly. And so for me, a replacement or of any type is not really, it wasn't really going to vibe with me. Maybe if they only did new music, maybe, I don't know. I don't have that feeling around it. I guess it's just, yeah. So maybe I'm kind of in the bad. I don't know, because also I wish them well, right? It's the same with Stone Temple Pilots. I wish them well. I hope that their tour goes well. I hope that they get the joy and creative outlet. I hope that and success from their tours and new material. I hope they do. It's just that this doesn't sit with me anymore, right? But I still wish them well. And so I think there's people that are maybe a bit more like me, but also probably just generally change resistant. They don't want someone new, even though it's impossible for Linkin Park to carry on as they were. Because, had Chester passed away in 2017 and he's only 41, which is also so incredibly young, right? Very, very sad. So yeah, I think there's people that they're like, look, if there's no Chester, it's not the same. We don't like it, but they probably voiced their dislike a bit more. But then there was the very bad, and the very bad were mean, right? Mean. I don't really think there's another way to describe it. Mean is accurate, right? They are angry that the band is touring. They're angry that the band is releasing new music. They're also angry that the band are performing old music. They are angry that a woman is in the band. They are angry that a woman with a different vocal style is in the band. They are, and they're really vocal in their anger, and they're picking apart of her in particular. And I do wonder if their reaction would be the same if it was a man, if they'd selected a man, or not. I don't think so. For a lot of them, I think it's very definite misogynistic response. But anyway, they've been mean, right? And then also people are trying to dig up negative information about her so that they can share that they don't like her, but then also hopefully find reasons for other people to dislike her, which is seems such a pointless and mean-spirited thing to me, right? Especially when you consider that when Chester passed, there was a real outpouring of love and support. The same with Chris Cornell, about being kind, about recognising other people's battles, about trying to do the right thing by other people. Asking yourself, what's the value in being a prick right now? Zero value in being a prick right now. But that sentiment just doesn't exist now. It's gone. Which is sad, right? And also, it's just the interneting, right? What are you going to do? Hope it passes quickly? I don't know. Anyway, so that's happening, which also got me thinking about Stone Temple Pilots. And then people's reactions around this, which is like, this isn't what Chester would have wanted, or this is what Chester would have wanted. And there's only one person that knows what Chester would have wanted, and he's not here to tell us. There are other people that probably have a better idea of how he might feel about things, people who actually knew him, which is, not really most of the people giving feedback or commentary around this. Now, this is where I think it gets complicated because of feelings, right? And this is the thing as well, this idea that people saying, this isn't what he would have wanted, this isn't what he would have liked, this doesn't feel right. Because for me, I was listening to it and I thought, it's a different direction. It's not for me, but it's a different direction. But maybe logically, if I think about it logically, maybe he would have supported it because he performed with somebody else's band. So maybe he has an empathy for, band members wanting to continue to be together, to work together, to stay together. I don't know. But I think it's this feeling that we know him because we know his music, but we don't know him. And I think, and I've been thinking about this actually a lot this afternoon, and overthinking is a dangerous position for me, but that it's not necessarily that we knew him. I think the more accurate description is that we feel like he knew us because of his songs, right? They captured the way that we felt, and sometimes they captured the way that we felt at really, really tough times. So when we're in pain, when we're suffering, when we're in grief, when we're hollow, we feel alone, right? Because that's the cherry on the top, right? It's not only do you feel like that, but you think you're the only one. Well, then when you hear a song and you're like, oh, well, there's at least two of us, right? Because it's me and them. Then we see that there's a big audience for this song. We go, oh, there's way more of us. It's me and them and all of them too, right? And of course, obviously, people capture our emotions at other times too, like when we're happy, when we're in love, when we're experiencing joy, when we're experiencing new things, people capture that too. But I think it's because, captured pain, and that, I don't know, I think it makes you feel connected to people who, even if you don't really know them at all, a little bit of their voice, and then you feel like they know a little bit of yours. It's a funny thing though, right? This idea of replacing people within bands. I think that, we talked about this obviously when we talked about Foo Fighters, how they had to get a new drummer with the passing of Taylor. It's just funny because we never know when it's going to be accepted and when it's not. And that's weird because also then the band won't know how it's going to land then either. They won't know until it happens how people are going to respond to it. So, I was thinking about other bands where this happened, and I think it's more difficult when it's a singer because they are they are described as the front man or woman of the band. They're also often the pin-up of the band. They're also very often they're the popular one, right? Like lead guitarists too, they get it as well, but it's the singer, right? The singer is the voice, the face, the representation of the band. And a lot of the time that's how they're presented, and deliberately, right? Either by the band themselves or by whoever's marketing them, or really just what the fan base ends up deciding. This is our guy, this one. This is the one that we all know and get behind. And you don't know how that's going to work if you need to get a new singer, right? So these ones I've been thinking about, right? AC/DC. Now, Bon Scott, I think he did one album, I don't think he did more than one. If he did, I'll write up here that it was more than one. And he passed away over 40 years ago, right? But people are still like, he's still the singer of AC/DC and Brian Johnson. And I had to look this up because I felt very bad about not knowing this. He's the new guy. He's still considered the new guy after 40 years. More than 40 years. He's the new guy. This is so crazy. But AC/DC have obviously had a long and spectacular career with an alternate frontman. Queen. Freddie Mercury, obviously. Irreplaceable. One of a kind, right? His personality, of course, but his vocal range, his performing persona, absolutely one of a kind. But Queen have continued to perform and have arena tours and been very popular in excess. Probably more, probably more in Australia, maybe in parts of the UK, I don't know. But, they've still continued with a couple of alternate frontmen as well after the passing of Michael Hutchence, right? Because, again, people have really strong connection to the music of all of these bands. They're tied really strongly, particularly to people, when you're in your teens and early 20s, those formative years when you're learning who you are as a person, independent of your family structure. So it's really important music, right? People don't want to just give it up. So they go, you know what? This guy's pretty good. He's doing a good job. I like it, right? So they continue on. We'll talk about this more when we actually talk about Alice in Chains, but I didn't see Alice in Chains with Lane. I saw them with William, the newer singer. He's not new anymore because it's been a while now. But that landed well. And in that episode, we'll talk about some of the reasons why I think that worked. But yeah, you don't know. And I think that's the challenging thing for the band too. They don't know what the reception will be like until they get the reception, because it could go either way. And it's really similar though to when you listen to a band, maybe they have 2 or 3 albums that are very similar, and sometimes then you'll get to the 4th album and you'll be like, ugh, are you gonna change this or what? It's just more of the same thing. Ultimately, they might change things and you'll be like, gross, we like the old stuff better. But the band won't know what their fan reaction is going to be, because there's not really a marker for it. There's not really, you don't know, because even the fan doesn't know. Sometimes the change might be a change that people are like, you know what, this change makes sense, I get it, I'm on board. Other times I'll be like, nah, this is garbage. Often you'll see as well when it's like when people go from a more rock into a more commercial rock, that change there, people are like, oh, I just got soft, I hate it now. But, sometimes you need to do things to be, to test yourself, sometimes it is a totally commercial, financial reason, and we can't really judge people for that because we all work for commercial and financial reasons too. But, sometimes it's just they like something different. Maybe they were doing something when they were 17, 18, 20 years old, but now they're 35 and they got millions of dollars and their struggles just are not the same. They're not. They're different. Maybe they just wanted to do something different. Maybe they just like listening to lighter, happier music. Who knows? But the weird thing is you don't know how you feel about it until you have that feeling. You don't know if you're going to sit there going, great, more of the same. Or if you're going to sit there going, great, more of the same. Anyway, and I think it's the same when you are replacing band members, right? This idea of like, you know what, as long as the band continues on, the creative force is still in there, you still have all of these other great musicians. We still have the core there, so we can see how things go. Or people are like, no, absolutely not, I hate it. You just don't know. Anyway, that's some thoughts about things. My favourite songs. I have narrowed it down to 3. I know, what an achievement. The first one is Interstate Love Song from the Purple album. I love the intro on this song, the guitar on it, because it's really soft, but it's still prominent. Like it's not in your face, right? And then it kicks up musically, and then Scott comes in as well. And it just feels, for me, there's something about this song that just feels very comforting when I hear it. The second one is The Big Empty, which is also from the Purple album that came out in 94. It is also on the Crow soundtrack that was released in 1994. So this is the original Crow movie with Brandon Lee, and I loved that movie, and I loved the soundtrack for it as well. It was so moody. Like it felt like every song on that album suited the movie like 100%. This one has another great intro on it too, and I think the guitar is perfection. And I do think then that Dean DeLeo, the guitarist, he is underrated. He's an incredible talent, and the way that the guitar sounds in this song is, again, it's very moody, and it fits tonally in with the movie, but it also fits in with what you would expect from Stone Temple Pilots. So, and a large part of that is his guitar work, which, you know what, maybe I will go see them in March, because he is very good, and I do think he is underrated as a guitarist. You know, when I see lists, I'm like, oh yeah, that guy, yeah, fair enough. I'm like, he should be on more of those lists, 100%. Yeah, it was the Rolling Stones top 50 of all time that I just saw, that I was just thinking of just now. He's not on that list. But look, to be honest, I don't know how you put together a list like that. I don't know how you decide who stays on and who gets kicked off. Of all time, first of all, is ridiculous. But I think if they were doing it in a time period, even of like for a 20-year period or a 30-year period, he'd have to be in that list for sure. So maybe I will go and see them so I can see him again, because he sets a mood, right, which is one thing, but he holds the mood too, and I think that's harder, and I think that helps you absorb more into the song. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if you do know what I mean, but I don't think that's a skill that everyone has. I think sometimes people can introduce a feeling, but they can't necessarily hold it. But he does. So the third song is also from Purple too, which is surprising actually, because I do think that Core and Tiny Music are great albums as well. But I guess, I don't know. Sometimes, you just hear an album at the exact right time in your life, right? And just everything about it just ticks every box. Anyway, it still remains. And I was lucky that I got to see that one played live, because again, it wasn't is a very good song, but it wasn't like, Plush or Creep or whatever, which are also amazing songs, which they did also play. But you don't always expect to get your songs that are not the singles played. You hope, but you don't always expect it anyway. And the chorus where it says, take a bath, I'll drink the water that you leave. And then the if you should die before me, ask if you could bring a friend. And pick a flower, hold your breath and drift away. Like that whole thing I always just thought was just so beautifully written. And I always had this, I guess, kind of like highly abstract romantic view of those lyrics, especially that idea of like drinking the bathwater. But look, I haven't seen Saltburn, but I've heard about it, I've heard some scenes in it described in detail, more than I needed, and that is like, that's not what I had in mind as an abstract theme around that song and the beauty of those lyrics. But now I feel like other people would hear them in a particular way that I never did. I never heard it in I guess I never really considered it in a fully physical way, but just more as an idea of, I don't know, an abstract romance, I guess. See, this is why I listen to music so much. I can't always articulate things myself. I need someone else to do it for me. You know, the other thing I miss about physical albums, this is particularly pertinent when it comes to Purple, is the hidden tracks. You know, when you would get a song at the end that isn't listed in the track list, and then you sometimes you only hear it because it might be like the song might play for 3 minutes, then there's like this 8-minute gap, and then there's a 2-minute secret song, and you only hear it if you just happen to have let the CD run because you were doing something else and you didn't get up to stop it. Now this, like, I like that, right? And Purple has one of those that comes in at the end as like a, I don't know, maybe a 4-minute break or something before the second album, which is a song, the secret hidden song, comes out. Now, on Spotify though, they call it the hidden track. Like, the second album, hidden track. It's like, no, that's not what that is. It's a hidden track. You can't write it down, it's not hidden anymore. Anyway, like I said, I think I'm going to be reverting back to physical album purchases anyway, especially when there is album artwork or potentially secret songs, because I just think it's better. A band that I wish I'd seen. Now, you probably know that I've been on quite the nostalgic British trip the last couple of weeks, and I have been listening to The Verve as well, and I do wish that I had seen them before they split up. There is still a chance that I could see them though, which is exciting. If they ever reformed, I could go and see them. So I've been listening to songs obviously that have been released around the Urban Hymns timeline, and I know for sure that this would be a concert that you went to that people would sing along, right? Because I'm sure in Bittersweet Symphony, this would be one of those ones, you know, where the singer sings and then just does this, and the crowd, 100%, you know what I'm talking about. The I Sing, You Sing. This is definitely Bittersweet Symphony. They would do that. Also, their songs are kind of like anthems. And whilst they would like to see Bittersweet Symphony and The Drugs Don't Work, I'd actually really love to see Lucky Man. I love the lyrics in that song. I just think it would be so... I would just like to see it because I never have. And because there's still a chance that I might get to one day. Anyway, thanks for joining me today. It's been a time, hasn't it? I've talked about some things that are not just the t-shirt or the band. Anyway, thank you for joining me. Thank you for sticking it out. This is a band t-shirt. This is Leah, and this is goodbye. Bye.